Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of the Mr. Redder podcast. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen insists I share my Nintendo Switch with her brat. After that, am I the jerk for making my boyfriend cry after I corrected him in front of his family? And after that, am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to quit competitive dance? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to take anyone's Nintendo Switch. Nintendo fell off a long time ago. PC gaming for the win, bruh. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen insists I share my Nintendo Switch with her brat. This just happened the other day, and after sharing this story with my friends and family, a few of them suggested that I share it here. The scene is a Southwest airline flight. I was sitting in a window seat next to two lovely ladies, and directly horizontal from us was an empty seat, a mom and her son. The flight was taking off. For those who don't know, you are required to stay seated and keep your seatbelts on for the beginning of the flight until the captain says otherwise. I was strapped in my seat and decided to take out my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on beneath my feet. "Excuse me, ma'am." I didn't realize at first that the mother in the seats horizontal from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her belt and moved to the empty seat by my aisle, closer to me. "Ma'am, with the video game." I lifted my head, but the stranger next to me nudged me as well. "That lady wants you to get your attention," the woman next to me muttered. I turned my head to see this woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. "Sorry," she began. "I just wanted to know if there was any way that my son could use that game for a little while." "I'm so sorry," I began. "My Nintendo Switch is just really important to me. I don't feel comfortable giving it to anyone I don't know. I don't even let my sister play with it." I was going to continue, but the woman cut me off. "Oh, my son's not like most kids," she replied. "He's not destructive. His cousin has one of these, and he knows how to play it." She smiled and set her hand out. The two women seated next to me looked at me as if they were also in disbelief. "I'm sorry," I said again. "I just don't feel comfortable with it. I bought it for me." "How old are you?" the woman said with a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it in her lap. "I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters," I replied, growing exceptionally uncomfortable. "Well," she began, clearly sounding agitated. "My son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight, and he just wants something to do. He can't see it for a few minutes." "No, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, but I'm expecting you to understand since this is my property." I put my head down and I unpaused my game, as to ignore anything else that she had to say. "Are you serious?" She seemed genuinely livid. "Well, son, sorry buddy, not everyone knows how to share," the woman said to her kid who was next to her. Her kid started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. "Thanks for this," she said to me. "A sweet kid just wants to share with you, and you're being ignorant about it." Before I even opened my mouth, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. "How dare you bring that energy on this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable with passing her electronics to a stranger." The mother wasn't having it. "She's an adult and can't share with a kid for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight?" "You should have brought something for him to do then," the woman in my row responded. It shut her up good. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, "I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a kid." Some of the people around us giggled. I'm sure they all overheard the drama at the beginning of the flight. I've come across some entitled people in my life, but this strange lady took the cake. The perfect comeback at baggage would have been to ask the chapter and verse where this was going against God's word. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you have let the kid borrow your Nintendo Switch or not? Please let us know. "When someone keeps bugging me to borrow something, I just cough and sneeze all over it. Then I ask if they still want it. Works every time." Am I the jerk for making my boyfriend cry after I corrected him in front of his family? Hi. So my boyfriend, who's 22, and I, 22 female, have been having a really rocky few weeks. I started a new job, and I work with kids, and I'm exhausted when I come home from work, so I normally do homework and then game for a little. My boyfriend has been on this thing about how I never help out at the apartment or with the dog, which is fair. I definitely don't clean as much as I should, but I probably pick up the kitchen twice a week and let the dog out once a day. I always make sure his food and water dishes are full. I work 11-hour shifts, by the way, and I get up at 5 a.m. He doesn't work and plays video games literally all day long. He doesn't wake up until 11, and then he's on when I get home, and he's sure on when I go to bed. We just got back from his family dinner, and he was complaining to his mom about how he didn't know getting a girlfriend meant adopting a kid, my dog, and he was tired of looking after my dog. I told him it's funny he says he takes care of him when his food and water bowl were empty when I left and empty when I came home, and the dog ate and drank like his life depended on it. He said he fed him, but he definitely didn't. Then he said that he does a lot of other things. And I said, like what? Walk him? Take him to the bathroom? Because he has accidents all the time, but never on the weekend when I'm home. He started stammering and saying he did a lot with the house, and I sort of just snapped and told him I could see him on games for 12 hours a day while I worked to provide for us. He didn't say anything, just got up and left. His mom said she was sorry, and if I needed help to let her know. His dad said I'm being too hard on him, and I'm going to drive him away. Edit. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. I think I'm a jerk because of the harshness and environment this conversation happened in. I heard him crying, and he's complete stonewalling me, and I feel really guilty about embarrassing him in front of his parents. Edit 2. Please stop saying my dog needs to be rehomed. I normally put water in his dish in the mornings and food, just not today because I was running late. My issue is with my boyfriend claiming to do things that I do or he just doesn't do. I walk the dog after work. I run him hard on the weekends. He gets playtime and he's healthy. I promise the dog is happy. He didn't have food for one day, and my boyfriend happened to comment on how hard it was to take care of a dog. So I called him out for not even feeding him the one day I missed it. Not the jerk. Why make the effort to drive him away? End the relationship now and hire a dog walker. Rehome the boyfriend. Keep the dog. Not the jerk. Oh look, another typical 2022 boyfriend. Spends all his time playing video games and being a loser while his girlfriend has to work hard to keep a roof over his head. I swear I'm so done with dating. It's impossible to find a decent guy these days. Every guy I've ever dated was a complete loser with nothing going for him. I guess I could find a guy with a stable job if I was willing to lower my standards and be with someone who's not even attractive, but why should I have to do that? Most of my friends have given up on guys and are now dating girls exclusively, which is probably what I'll end up doing too. Yowza, I see a whole lot of cats in your future. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Does boyfriend's diet consist primarily of Doritos and Mountain Dew? A gamer's got to eat. Am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to quit competitive dance? I, 30 female, have a daughter, Lily, who's 14. We just moved states, husband is in the army, and she'll be going to a new school soon, and she's deciding on her new subjects. She did French last year and did extremely well, was way ahead in her class, but she spent a lot of time after school studying for that one language. She said she had fun doing it, doubtful, and enjoyed it very much. I need to add that Lily does competitive dance, which means that she doesn't have much time left after school. I did competitive dance as a kid, and I know how hard it is to find time for studying. She came to me the other day telling me that her new school doesn't offer French, but they offer Spanish, and she wanted to take it, and asked me if I could sign her up to private French lessons so that she can learn both languages. I told her that absolutely not, that with her dance, she won't have time for that, and it's too difficult of a subject, taking up too much of her time. She told me that she hasn't been enjoying dance for a while and was too scared to tell me, but she wants to quit dance. She told me that she wants to study languages and work with that when she's an adult. I told her that she won't be quitting dance because she's too good at it, and I already put in a lot of money and that she doesn't need to know other languages. She'll get by with English just fine. Of course, as teenagers do, she threw a fit and ran to her room. She accused me of living vicariously through her. When did a 14-year-old learn that phrase though? And I grounded her for it. She hasn't talked to me since this morning. My husband came back from work and asked me what happened, and I explained to him that she told me that I should consider letting her quit dance, that languages are a useful skill. Apparently, they always look for people who speak languages, and it'll be better than dance for her future. I told him I didn't want to talk to him anymore and called my sister to vent. Surprisingly, my sister took my husband's and Lily's side, and she joked that I should post here if I don't believe her. So I decided to give it a try. Am I the jerk for not allowing my daughter to quit dance and take language classes instead? You're not listening to your kid's interests. She told you what she likes. You don't believe her, her dad, or your own sister. Hopefully you believe countless people who think you are the jerk, and a huge jerk at that. I couldn't believe that. She put tons of extra hours in and did really well in French, but mom still doesn't believe she could have enjoyed it. Just because OP loves dance and hates learning new languages doesn't mean her daughter will be the same. Knowing more languages is certainly a better career path than pro dancing. So two people told you that you're in the wrong here and you're seeking people to agree with you. Stop living your personal dreams through your daughter. What is your end goal for her? Something you couldn't achieve? She already told you she doesn't want to continue dance. Time and money, your unfulfilled dreams, all on your daughter's back. Do you know what normal parents do when their kid decides they don't enjoy sport anymore? They allow them to quit and focus on something they love. Your daughter is going to resent you forever. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Going against the grain here, but I don't think you're the jerk for this. I used to play golf professionally, even won a few big tournaments. Golf was my life, even how I met my wife. She was working an event I competed in during college. Naturally, I wanted my son to follow in my footsteps. When your dad is a professional golfer, you have a world of opportunity that most kids never would. When he was growing up, I spent a fortune on his lessons, top-of-the-line equipment, training camps, you name it. My boy ended up getting a full-ride scholarship thanks to his golf talent, and I couldn't have been more proud of him. We threw a huge celebration for him, and there were even some big names in golf that came to the house. A few weeks before he was supposed to leave for college, he broke down one night and told me this wasn't what he really wanted. His dream was to go into the Army, which some recruiters at his school had tricked him into thinking was a good idea. I can't even begin to describe how disappointed in him I was. We had a huge fight about it. I told him if he makes this stupid decision to never speak to me again. He didn't, and he shipped out later that month. He gave up his scholarship and all the opportunity that would have come with it, so I never spoke to him again after that. As far as I was concerned, I had no son. In 2011, he went missing in Afghanistan. My wife is in denial and thinks we'll hear from him someday. But I know he's gone. I can feel it, an emptiness I can't even describe. Why couldn't my boy have just played golf? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. Force your kids to do things they don't like and they'll always resent you for it. Find out what their passion is and then support them in it. What if their only passion is playing video games and watching anime all day? Then that would make them my spirit animal. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my daughter's tuition after she lied about her major? I'll keep this short. My daughter, who is 19, told me she was going to college to major in computer science. I was ecstatic about this because she's been set on majoring in illustration. For years, I've been trying to talk her out of it. I know she loves illustration, but it's extremely hard to get a steady job from that. I wanted her to do something she could be successful in. I want her to have a wider range of opportunities. As it turns out, she lied to me. She's majoring in illustration. She got some mail about some art exhibition at her school. I thought nothing of it at first because I knew that she was a computer science major. After looking into it a bit more, I found out her work was chosen to be displayed in the exhibition. I was furious. I've spent tens of thousands of hard-earned money for her computer science. That's what we agreed on. I told her she can do what she wants, but I will not support her. She can pay for it herself or get her mother to pay. Or she could begin to pay me back for the money she stole from me interest-free. My wife said I'm being unreasonable, that she's only 19, and asking her to pay for her own tuition is asking too much of her. I don't think it was, as I agreed to pay for her to study computer science, nothing else. I was also giving her a chance to make what she did right. I was deceived and my money was going towards something I had no say in. Now my wife and daughter are upset with me. I'm starting to reflect and think maybe I could have been nicer about the situation. You're the jerk. Firstly, dang. If I had parents like you, I would go no contact real quick. Talk about critical and unsupportive. Second, her work is being displayed at an exhibition. Do you know how big that is? It means not only is she pursuing her passion, she's good at it. I'm also not entirely sure you understand the illustration industry. Stable jobs are the norm in it. One of my friends is an illustrator for Scholastic. He started working for them at age 21 and has been with them ever since. He's now 34. It pays very well and he lives very comfortably, even with 2022 prices. It's competitive and in high demand right now, not to mention the degree can get her a job not only illustrating, but in graphic design, animation, production design, etc. You messed up, bud. You have a very slim window to make this right, and I suggest you take it, because if you don't, she's gone. Former advisor here who helps students find their best fit major. 1. You can no more pick your kid's major than you can choose whom they date and they marry. Sure, maybe her life would be easier with a rich partner, but her heart belongs to illustration. 2. A long-standing interest is unlikely to change. She's been dating. She's ready to marry this career path. 3. You would have wasted your money paying for a degree she didn't want. If she didn't want to study it for 4 years, What makes you think she wants to do it all day, every day for the rest of her life? Statistically, she'd almost certainly have dropped out or changed paths within 5 years. I appreciate you want to set your kid up for success. I get it. If she doesn't find a job, she won't curl up in a fetal position and cry. She'll keep looking and make her way, by and by, just like all the other adults, especially if she has support. Either way, she isn't going to be a computer engineer. Let her self-actualize, and don't offer to pay for the wedding only if you choose a different groom, dude. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. My dad did the same thing to me. Guess what? We don't talk anymore. Trying to control your daughter is a surefire way of losing her. Her work is being displayed in an exhibition. If it were my daughter, I would be sure to have a front row seat. If you keep this up, you're gonna lose your daughter. Apologize and start listening to what she wants, what her hopes and dreams are, then become her biggest cheerleader. Not the jerk. What's wrong, bro? Don't want your sweet little angel to end up waiting tables for pennies or mixing my drinks at Starbucks? All jokes aside, I don't blame you at all. I've paid for 2 of my kids' higher education, and both of them went into fields I approved of. And guess what? They both make over $100K a year now. My youngest has been telling me she isn't planning on going to college and insists on becoming a model/influencer instead. I told her straight up, "Darling, you'll never be the next Kim Kardashian. Your face looks way too much like mine. And if you don't follow my lead and make good decisions, you'll be out of my house the day you turn 18. It helps that my wife backs me up. As parents, it's our duty to set our kids up for success. Fail at that, and they'll be spending their days commenting here on Reddit, competing for who can be the biggest victim, and attacking people like you who have common sense." Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. Could be worse. At least she's not majoring in philosophy. Isn't that what you majored in, Karen? Exactly, and look at me now. I'm stuck in this room with you all day. You want me to leave your pizza on your doorstep without paying for it again? This was, and still is, my personal favorite story of malicious compliance delivered by yours truly. I'm a few brewskis deep, so I apologize for any grammar mistakes. Backstory. This particular customer's address and phone number still haunts me to this day because they either full-on stiffed me or underpaid me every single delivery I ever made for them, and they were on the very edge of our delivery area, 20-mile radius. I was around 20 to 22 years old. I drove a 1988 Jeep Cherokee as a pizza delivery vehicle for a company whose logo is a very popular table game in the US prison system. Tips were very important to my survival as an employee, as they literally paid for the gas I needed to do my job because the company refused to pay gas mileage. But I did the smart thing and kept track and used that for a significant deduction on my taxes. Save your receipts if you use your personal vehicle for work. Fuel, fluid change, brake pads, etc. My manager and I are rolling up and getting ready to call it a night after a dead shift when the phone rings 2 minutes before closing time. It's that family, calling for their 2 veggie pizzas with grilled chicken. The owners of this franchise have full access to the call logs in store, so they know if we don't answer before closing and take the order or it's firing time. I proceed to drive the 20 minutes to their house to find out they aren't home. They always pay in cash, exact change or less. I call the number they have listed for deliveries. Hear the home phone ringing. Yeah, landlines were still a thing. Ask your parents if you don't know what that is. No answer. Okay, try the secondary number. Voicemail. So I figure I'll go back to the Jeep with the pizzas still in the heat bag to make sure they stay safe and warm while I call the manager to see what I should do. He answers, and I quote, "You aren't gonna like this. They want you to leave the pizza on the doorstep because you didn't get it there fast enough. So they went to the pizza place down the street from their house." Me, on the doorstep? Okay. My poor shoes, my poor shoes that night. I had white DC quartz. In a fit of pizza-driven rage, I dumped that veggie pizza face down on their doorstep, and I waffle stomped it permanently into their exposed aggregate concrete and used the box to scoop up what was left to wipe it all over their front door. I left with a feeling of meaningful bliss, and when I got back to the store, we permanently blacklisted that address and phone number. If someone is using their time, fuel, and life to bring you food, just tip them. Had to redo an emergency drill at sea because too much of it was simulated. Corrected the mistake the next time around. I was in the military underway on a ship, and we had to periodically do drills. Think fire alarm, man overboard, abandoned ship, etc. And as we geared up for an outside inspection team to visit, we'd be run and grade them ourselves to see what we'd need to improve upon to pass inspection. We were in the middle of a long patrol, and we were running a man overboard drill. Part of this drill is that When a man overboard alarm sounds, you're supposed to throw a life ring over the side of the ship towards the person in the water to give them something to hang on to and to help mark the position where they were in the water so that the ship could more easily find them to pick them up. Simple enough. As a side note, when running drills, there are various ways to mark what things are off limits or should be simulated. We would use blue tape. So blue tape would go over the real international distress signals for a drill, the long-range radios, etc. So we knew we had to just simulate those things. If we were doing a part of these responses and we saw something with blue tape, we'd kind of narrate, and now I'd use the radio to alert our parent command, etc. So we run the man overboard drill. The ship maneuvers to pick up the fake man overboard, a dummy named Oscar, named for the name of the flag you hoist when you have a man overboard, in pretty quick time. However, during the debrief, the ship's executive officer, second in command, also head of the training team, berates the crew because no one threw life rings over the side as per policy. We would have failed the drill if we were at a real inspection, he says. He said that a bunch of crew members went up to the life rings and then stated, "And now I'd throw a life ring," to the training team members watching, rather than actually doing it. If there isn't blue tape on it, then you can't self-simulate, the XO says, and we're going to run the drill again until we get it right. What happened next was a brilliant moment of a group, without consulting each other, executing some malicious compliance. We run the drill again. Oscar goes over the side, and the man overboard alarm is sounded. The ship had, I believe, 9 life rings on the outside decks. They started going over the side, one after the other. I think we got 8 of them over the side before the XO got on the loudspeaker and said, "Stop throwing life rings," but the damage had been done. I do wish we would have gotten the last one over, but alas. At the end of the drill, the ship spent the next 2 to 3 hours tracking down life rings with flashing strobes, each floating different directions away from the ship on the open ocean. It was lots of fun since we got to maneuver the ship around a ton and just enjoy driving it rather than having to do anything worthwhile. But the XO was none too pleased since it delayed our patrol schedule a little bit. But the good news was we passed the drill and certainly didn't simulate anything, so he couldn't say anything about it. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my wedding when she happens to be a bridesmaid for my fiance? Me, 26 male, and my fiance Kenzie, who's 27 female, are getting married this fall. She asked my sister to be a bridesmaid, and they have really bonded over it. I don't speak to my mother, and I haven't since I was 16. Not a word. She does reach out still, but I block her number. When I was 13, I came home early from school to find another man in our house. My mom then proceeded to lie about who the dude was and told me not to say anything to my father. I was always closer with my dad than my mom. She kept buying me things for days and reminded me to not say anything. But I told my dad what I saw. My dad flipped and they got divorced. My mom then decided to live with the guy I saw in our house. Unfortunately, she got split custody, so I was forced to spend time over there with my sister. Usually just locked myself in my room and only came out to get food. I purposely fought with her boyfriend to force my way to live solely with my dad. My sister got upset at my attitude towards the situation and we had a falling out. Eventually, when I was 15, my mom broke down and let me live with my dad full time. My sister kept a strong relationship with my mom and her boyfriend, while I haven't spoken to my mom since the day she drove me to my dad's. She kept reaching out once I was there, but I blocked her, which upset my sister even more. We didn't speak after I went away for college. A year ago, however, she invited me to her wedding and wanted to catch up. Kenzie made me go to the wedding. I'm glad I went though, because we got some things healed. We started getting closer again, and now my sister is involved in our lives. But what happened last week is why I kicked her out of the wedding. I learned through my sister's husband that my sister has a plan to bring my mom as her +1 for the wedding. Her husband is going to be out of town, and she thought it would be fine to bring my mom. I asked Kenzie if she knew about this plan, and she said she didn't, but that I should go easy on my sister because she just wants my mom there, and my mom is pressuring her. But I flipped, called my sister, and she said I needed to get over what happened. Mom was really sorry and just wanted to be there on my big day, and was devastated to learn she wasn't being invited to her only son's wedding, that she thought it would be a fun surprise for me. I told her she knew I was estranged from mom, and that it was incredibly rude and sneaky what she was going to do. Since I could no longer trust her, she wouldn't be invited anymore. Kenzie is upset because I kicked out one of her bridesmaids and thinks I should give my sister another chance. But I never fully trusted my sister after I learned that for years she was feeding my mom info about my life when I specifically said not to. So this was her second time doing something shady. Am I the jerk? Edit. My fiance talked to me about inviting my mom to the wedding. I caught them texting each other. My mom ranting off some sob story and Kinsey eating it up. So I think Kinsey is fine with her coming and might have even supported my sister's plan. She's been pushing me to talk to my mom for years. She thinks it's been long enough. But I don't see value in having scumbags around my life. Once my mom cheated, she was basically done to me. Not the jerk. I'm a wife whose husband does not speak with his mom. She was definitely not invited to our wedding, his decision, and his relationship with her is 100% his own decision and not my business. If I would have invited her or been aware of a plot to have her in attendance, he would have been so hurt and betrayed. Your fiance should have had your back and respected you enough to be no contact with your mother as well. Not the jerk, but the real problem here is your fiance not listening to you and respecting your boundaries. I feel really terrible for OP. Everyone around him thinks they know what's best for him, and even worse, they only care about their comfort over his. OP, you get to decide if you ever want to be in your mother's presence again, no one else. From an outside perspective, this is about trust and stability that you had ruined when you were a kid. Your mother tried to steamroll you into silence, and now your fiance is doing the same. Put your brakes on your wedding and have a sincere conversation with your fiance, and if possible with a therapist, about how all of them disregard your feelings and boundaries. I don't know if your fiance is just plain naive, which isn't an excuse to ignore your feelings, or if you ended up with another woman in your life who thinks they know more than you about you. Entitled Friend learns to choose their words carefully. Backstory. I had a friend who we'll call Josh, which is obviously not his actual name. Josh and I had been friends since we were young. Turns out, liking Transformers, wrestling, and Hot Wheels makes it really easy to make friends in elementary school, or primary school for those on the other side of the Atlantic. Josh originally was a pretty good guy, but his parents had issues with one another and eventually split up. His mother remarried and his stepfather began to spoil Josh rotten. Josh began to become a lot more antagonistic, and we grew distant as the years went on, but I tried to remain friendly with him, hoping he'd eventually see the error of his ways. He went through multiple relationships, all of them ending by his hand, but I was unaware as he only spoon-fed me information and made the other party look like they were in the wrong. The incident. Josh had recently had a breakup with a girl who we'll be calling Megan, who I was friendly with before the breakup. Whilst I was worried about Megan due to us being friends, I stupidly decided to check on Josh first. Now, I had let Josh borrow stuff from me, including multiple gaming consoles, clothes, and even a few bits of furniture. I tried to be a good friend, but I didn't know that I was being taken advantage of. We had decided to order some pizza, and Josh had unwittingly ordered from local pizza, where Megan worked. Local pizza doesn't deliver. Josh persuaded me to go and get the pizza. In reality, he basically demanded it because he was too lazy to drive that way. I decided to bite the bullet and just drive my way to the local pizza and walked inside. Lo and behold, I met with Megan, who was on break at the moment. Megan and I spoke about things and the topic of Josh came up. It was busy and our order wasn't even done yet, so I didn't mind stopping to chat until Megan began to tell me her side of things. It turned out Josh had been a major jerk to Megan until Megan's brother, Drake, stepped in and pulled his sister out of the relationship. Drake had been a friend as well, but Josh had fed me lies, so I stopped speaking to Drake. I didn't want to believe Megan at first, until she called Drake, who corroborated her story. It was a lot to swallow. Josh's breakups began to make a lot more sense now, and I felt sick. Was I friends with a horrible person? I asked Megan some questions, and she told me her side of the story and ended up calling out a lot of Josh's flat-out lies. After the pizza was done, I promised Megan that I'd talk to Josh about this as someone who'd been close to him for years. She thought that maybe I'd be able to get through to him. Oh, were we both wrong. I got back to Josh's and just spoke about things until I managed to get on the topic of Megan. I mentioned to him that we spoke and what she had said. Big mistake. He got angry and called Megan a lying jerk and declared that I shouldn't believe her. I told him that Drake corroborated her story and that I was going through a lot of stress trying to make heads or tails of all of this. Josh, now absolutely livid, screams at me.
Shut up! Get out! You want to believe them? Take your stuff and go.
I was shocked. I tried to say something, but Josh cut me off.
I said get out. Take your stuff and get out of my house. You want to believe her and that stupid brother of hers? Fine. Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am. Let's see who believes you.
Malicious compliances. Yep, you read that right, dear reader. Compliances, plural. Now, whilst I'm not a big fan of confrontation, I also despise being yelled at. He wants me to take my stuff and go? So be it. I just give him an, "Okay, Josh, I'll take my things and go." So I began to take it all back. Gaming consoles, clothes, and I even grabbed the stand-up mirror I'd let him borrow ages ago. He tried to stop me multiple times, but I simply pushed past him and reiterated his words. He wanted me to shut up, grab my things, and go. So I did. PS2 I let him borrow? Taking that back. GameCube he borrowed so he could play some games he got at a thrift store. That's mine. Taking that home. I took everything that was mine, packed it into my car, and ignored him as he screamed, ranted, and raved at me, threatening to call the police. I simply dared him to, as I was only taking back my things. When I left, I called Megan and Drake and told them what happened. They said they had my back in case things went awry after this. Then I let them in on the second thing he said.
Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am.
Okay, Josh, bet. Megan, Drake, and I went through our contacts for anyone who knew Josh and told them what happened. One of these people was Josh's own mother, who was absolutely livid at him as Josh was living in his home on his mother and stepfather's dime. The fallout. Josh's reputation pretty much collapsed out from under him as evidence came to light, and Josh's various exes, emboldened by Megan and Drake coming out with their stories, began to spread their own stories on what had happened. Josh's friend circle turned on him rather quickly, finding out how much of a jerk he actually was. What made all of this worse for Josh was all of these stories had evidence, such as text, camera footage, and audio recordings, all of this evidence making it obvious that those Josh heard weren't lying. Josh's mother and stepfather ended up pulling his sizable allowance due to this, and he couldn't afford his home, so he was forced to move back in with them. Josh and I still don't talk anymore, and he had to sell off a lot of his furniture and personal possessions to pay off the debt he had managed to rack up after his allowance was pulled. I've heard that Josh has changed and is getting better, but after this crap he put me through, I'd rather be keeping my distance.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.